This is a fictional story created for entertainment and reflection. Any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental. My hands were shaking as I stood in front of my parents' old house, staring at my phone. A $3,000 transfer sat one tap away from being confirmed. It was the last of my savings. I had sold my only car to raise it because my mother said the hospital bills had doubled overnight. Sending that money meant I wouldn't make rent this month. Not sending it meant living with the thought that I let my sister suffer. I was about to press confirm when a voice called my name from behind me. My elderly neighbor hurried across the yard and grabbed my wrist before I could react. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. "Stop," she whispered. "Don't send another dollar. Go inside. Check the suitcase." Before I tell you what I found hidden in that house, take a moment to subscribe if you're interested in stories about uncovering the truth. To understand why I gave up everything so easily, you need to know about a promise I made when I was 16. The promise I made at 16 didn't come from bravery. It came from fear. The afternoon my father died at the steel mill, rain soaked through my shoes as I stood beside my mother and my younger sister, Whitney. The casket was sealed. The debt wasn't. Bills arrived before sympathy did, and silence filled the spaces where guidance should have been. I remember gripping the edge of the pew and deciding something without saying it out loud. I would take his place. I would hold the family together. From that day on, my mother looked at me differently. Not with comfort, but with expectation. Her grief hardened into control, and all of it focused on Whitney. She decided my sister was too fragile for the world, too sensitive for pressure, too delicate for responsibility. Someone had to be strong. That someone was me. Whitney grew up protected from consequences. I grew up absorbing them. While she slept in, I worked double shifts at a diner after school. While she talked about dreams, I learned how to stretch groceries and ignore exhaustion. When college acceptance letters came, I folded mine into a drawer and told myself it was temporary. The mortgage came first. Whitney's needs came first. My future could wait. It never did. I moved 3 hours away to Chicago because the pay was better, not because I wanted to leave. I washed dishes, managed warehouses, slept in damp basement apartments, and skipped meals so I could send most of my paycheck back home. 70%, sometimes more, every month, without fail. The dynamic never changed, only the demands did. 2 years ago, my mother called with a new kind of urgency. Whitney, she said, had been diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease. The symptoms were vague but terrifying. Bone pain, fatigue, experimental treatments insurance wouldn't cover. I wasn't allowed to visit. Whitney was ashamed, my mother said. She didn't want me to see her like that. I believed them. I sold my car. I bought a rusted replacement. I took on night jobs cleaning offices so I could wire $1,500 every month. When it wasn't enough, there was always another emergency, another appliance, another treatment, another tearful call. The manipulation was subtle and constant. I felt guilty for buying coffee, guilty for resting, guilty for wanting anything for myself while my sister was supposedly fighting for her life. By the time I reached that front porch with my phone in my hand, I wasn't just sending money. I was sending the last piece of myself I hadn't already given away. The disease changed everything, but not in the way I understood at the time. Whitney's illness came with rules. I wasn't allowed to visit. I wasn't allowed to ask too many questions. I wasn't allowed to see medical records because it stressed her out. Every boundary was framed as protection. Every objection I raised was turned into guilt. My mother became the gatekeeper of all information. She spoke in urgent updates in vague medical language that sounded serious enough to shut me down. The treatments were experimental. The doctors were private. Insurance was useless. Time was running out. I learned to stop asking for details and start sending money. That rhythm lasted nearly 2 years. Then, 3 months ago, my company sent me on an unexpected business trip that routed me straight past my hometown. I didn't plan to stop. I hadn't told anyone I was nearby. But as the exit sign for Fort Wayne appeared, something in my chest tightened. I told myself I just wanted to drop off groceries, to show support, to be a good daughter. The house looked wrong the moment I pulled into the driveway. No car, curtains drawn tight, no signs of activity. I stood on the porch and knocked, then tried the handle. Locked. The silence felt heavy, not medical. I called my mother, panic creeping in as the phone rang too long. When she answered, her voice was breathless and dramatic. "Oh, honey, you should have called first," she said. "We're at the hospital. Whitney's having a terrible reaction. She's in agony." I asked which hospital. She shut that down instantly. "She doesn't want you to see her like this," she said. "Please don't go inside. The house is full of germs and medical supplies." Then she hung up. I stood there holding a bag of groceries I didn't need while my stomach twisted into something cold and unfamiliar. That was when Mrs. Miller's voice cut through the quiet. She was in her yard with a garden hose, shaking her head as she watched me. "Hospital?" she scoffed. "Is that what she told you?" I walked closer to the fence, confused. "I saw them leave at 6 this morning," she said. "Taxi pulled right up. They looked like they were heading on vacation." My heart started pounding. "Whitney's sick," I said. "She's critical." Mrs. Miller laughed, sharp and humorless. "Sick," she said. She dragged a surfboard to the trunk. I didn't argue. I didn't thank her. I just walked back to the porch, found the spare key under the planter, and unlocked the door. The house smelled normal, no antiseptic, no medication, no urgency. I checked the downstairs rooms first, nothing. Then I climbed to the attic where old decorations and keepsakes were stored. That's when I saw the suitcase. Whitney's red one, the large one she used for trips. It was tossed into the corner like someone had been rifling through it in a hurry. I unzipped it, expecting clothes. Instead, I found paper, stacks of it. Hospital letterheads cut and pasted from the internet. Practice sheets covered in the same signature written over and over again. Invoices with mismatched fonts and inflated prices. A notebook listing expenses that didn't sound medical at all. Resort fees, designer stores, bar tabs. My hands started shaking so badly I had to sit down. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't exaggeration. It was construction. They had built an entire illness out of templates and lies, and I had paid for it one wire transfer at a time. I wanted to confront them immediately, to call, to scream, to demand answers, but something stopped me. If I did that, they would destroy everything, and I would be left with nothing but disbelief. So I zipped the suitcase back up. I put everything exactly where I found it, and I locked the door behind me. I didn't leave with groceries that day. I left with certainty. I didn't confront them that day. I went somewhere quiet and let the shock settle into something usable. The next morning, I spread the photos I'd taken of the documents across a hotel desk and started verifying everything, one detail at a time. I called the oncology department listed on the letterhead and waded through menus with my heart pounding. When a human voice finally answered, I gave Whitney's full name and date of birth. There was a pause, then confusion. They had no record of her, not current, not archived, not anywhere. I asked for the specialist whose signature appeared on every invoice. The name didn't exist. Not there. Not in that department. Not at that hospital. That was the moment hope disappeared. I tracked down Rick next, Whitney's ex-boyfriend, the one my mother said couldn't handle the stress of her illness. We met at a quiet coffee shop where no one knew us. He listened, then laughed in disbelief. "Sick?" he said. She refused to work and expected me to fund her lifestyle. He showed me what I'd never seen because I was blocked. Photos, videos, parties, clubs, designer bags, dates that matched the weeks she was supposedly in treatment. In one picture, my mother smiled beside her on a beach, holding a drink. The lie wasn't one-sided, it was coordinated. That night, I made a call of my own. I told my mother I had news. Big news. I said my company had promoted me and given me a signing bonus. $50,000. Cash. The reaction was instant. No congratulations, no pride. Just urgency. "Oh, thank God," she said. "Whitney needs emergency surgery. It costs exactly that." I told her I didn't trust a transfer. I said I'd bring the money in person. I needed to see Whitney before the procedure. She tried to push for a wire, then the phone changed hands. Whitney's voice was sharp and demanding, not weak, not tired. "Bring every cent," she said. "Cash, I can't wait." That was all I needed. I called my attorney and told him to prepare everything. I wasn't asking for revenge. I was asking for protection. That weekend, I drove back to the house with a heavy briefcase and a steady face. I didn't knock. I wanted to see the performance already in progress. They had staged the room perfectly. A rented hospital bed, a scarf wrapped tightly around Whitney's head, my mother crying on cue. She hugged me while watching the briefcase over my shoulder. She said the ambulance was waiting. She said time was running out. I sat down and asked questions. Names, dosages, recovery plans. They stumbled. They contradicted each other. When I opened the briefcase, they leaned forward. There was no money inside. I pulled out photographs, documents, proof, images of vacations, party videos, fake invoices, practice signatures. The room exploded. Whitney jumped out of bed. The scarf came off. She grabbed at the papers, denying everything at once. My mother collapsed to the floor, crying for real this time, begging, blaming, scrambling for a way out. They turned on each other without noticing me at all. I stood there, calm and finished. "This is over," I said. "Everything ends today." I didn't wait for their response. I walked out of the house while they screamed behind me, carrying nothing but the certainty that the truth had finally caught up. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't raise my voice. I walked out because there was nothing left to say. Behind me, the house filled with noise. Not grief, not fear, just panic. The kind that comes when a story collapses and everyone scrambles to save themselves. I sat in my car for a long moment with my hands on the steering wheel, listening to my own breathing slow down. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Missed calls, voicemails, messages stacked on top of each other. My mother cried first. She said she didn't understand how things had gone so wrong. She said she was scared. She said she was old. Whitney was next. Her messages weren't sad. They were angry. She accused me of betrayal, of cruelty, of ruining her life. She said family didn't do this to each other. I didn't respond to either of them. Later that evening, my attorney called to confirm everything had been filed, the charges, the documentation, the statements. I listened quietly and thanked him. When the call ended, the silence felt different than it ever had before. It wasn't heavy. It was clean. That night, I slept without my phone on the nightstand for the first time in years. I didn't wake up to emergency calls or manufactured crises. I didn't feel the familiar spike of dread before checking my balance. Over the next few days, I replayed moments I'd ignored for years. Every time I'd been told not to visit, every time I'd been rushed off the phone, every time I'd been made to feel selfish for asking questions. I realized something then. I hadn't been manipulated because I was weak. I'd been manipulated because I was dependable. They didn't mistake me for a fool. They chose me because I was reliable. That understanding didn't hurt. It clarified. I didn't feel the need to explain myself to extended family. I didn't draft a long message. I didn't defend my decision. I simply stopped participating. No more transfers, no more emergencies, no more roles. I packed my things, returned the rental car, and went back to my life. Not the life I'd been pausing, but the one that had been waiting patiently in the background. For the first time in years, my phone stayed quiet. And for the first time, the quiet didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like relief. 2 months have passed since that afternoon, and my life finally feels like it belongs to me. I'm sitting on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the city move without asking anything from me. There are no emergency calls, no sudden crises, no guilt attached to my breathing. The legal process unfolded quietly after that day. There were documents, meetings, and consequences, but none of it required my presence or emotional labor. The evidence spoke for itself. I didn't need to narrate my pain to be believed anymore. The house in Fort Wayne was sold. The bank reclaimed what had been neglected. I received court-ordered restitution that helped me recover a portion of what I had given away, though I know no amount could fully account for the years I lost believing a lie. My mother and Whitney didn't go to prison, but their lives changed permanently. They are required to work, to show up, to live without the safety net they built from my sacrifice. I don't monitor their progress. I don't wait for apologies. That chapter closed the moment I walked out the door. I used the money I recovered to invest in myself for the first time. I booked a long trip I'd postponed for years. I furnished my apartment slowly, intentionally, without explaining my choices to anyone. I wake up without dread. I rest without justification. Mrs. Miller still sends me notes sometimes. She never mentions my family unless I ask. She understands that knowing when to stop talking is also a form of care. I've blocked every number tied to my past life, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Sharing DNA does not obligate you to accept manipulation. Love that requires self-destruction isn't love at all. The hardest lesson I learned is also the simplest one. Kindness becomes dangerous when it replaces boundaries. Sacrifice stops being noble the moment it's expected. You cannot save people who are willing to drown you so they can stay afloat, and you are not cruel for stepping away from those who built their comfort on your silence. If this story resonated with you, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to choose distance from a family member to protect your peace? On Family Justice Files, we share stories about boundaries, accountability, and the quiet moments when choosing yourself changes everything. Thank you for listening until the very end.